Nate Fox, welcome to the Build On podcast, a show about how builders and creators are taking back the internet and ushering in the ownership economy with Web3. It's so good to see you, man. How are things?
Yeah, man, doing well. Good to see you. Good to see you too. I have a hard time keeping a serious face. I just like so if I'm like extra smiley or whatever, I just don't know what to do with my hands. It's like whatever.
Yes,
But
feel
yeah,
free to
man, doing
smile.
well.
We usher in all smiles as well. That's great, man. I like to start the pod with a hard hitting question since nobody wants to listen to us catch up. And that's why we did that for the last 20 minutes. But why
Great.
are you still why are you still in Web3 and why do you still find it important?
That is a great question. Yeah, I mean, I think that over the last few years, and just a little bit about kind of my background is last 10 years rather I've been in tech and in creative and marketing and this and there are so many things that have developed over time that there's a lot of gaps in, especially when it comes to creator economies and the creator community. And what attracted me to the NFT space in general and to Web3 was this idea that creators and people who are building something can not just monetize it once and it's done, but they can continually make a living and do something that's sustainable within their creative ability. And I think the NFT space has abused that in a lot of ways. But at the core of it, I think that the technology and the idea of building creator economies and creator communities like that is still so important. And it doesn't necessarily mean like it doesn't need to be like a small niche creator. It could be for brands. It could be for whoever it is. It doesn't matter. But it's giving the power back to others, and that's why I think it's so important. I think it's important that we figure out how we can avoid some of the exploitation of artists and creators, the way that Twitch takes 50% of streamers' income. Like that just doesn't sit well with me. And
Mm-hmm.
while Web 2, there are probably solutions that could help with that kind of stuff. I think a decentralized Web 3 future would actually help a lot in that. So that's why I'm here, and why I'm still here, because I believe in that. And that's what I like to build around. So,
Yeah, that's why I'm here too, and that's why we're friends and why we're talking today.
yeah.
That's great. And so up until this point, things have changed over the years that you've been in it. I know you and I've been on Twitter Spaces together and been
Yeah.
talking about Web3 for a while now. Has your reasoning changed whatsoever, or is it's still pretty rock solid the same?
I mean, I think I'd be dishonest if part of like my original reason of joining the space was to try to turn a profit. I Before NFTs, I was a sneaker flipper. I would do that on the side, and so it was a way to do something like sneakers and have fun with it, and be a part of an online community. Um, but never in a way that was like facetious or like, oh, I'm trying to screw people over. That's not who I am. But there's markets that you can, hey, if I can get in early enough, I can then turn this for a profit and it helps me make a living and so on and so forth. Um, and then for a while, I actually think I was also in it for the heavy idea of community, especially in a world that was very fragmented because of the pandemic and COVID and all that kind of stuff. It felt like a collection of people that were excited about the same thing.
Hmm.
Um, I think that again, another abused thing in the Web 3 space is the word community, and how people can build that out and kind of take advantage of others and say, oh, it's a community, when all reality it's just kind of rug pull. Um, so I think that there are varying reasons over the course of time, that I was in it. But at the core of it, yeah, I think that once I learned more about Web 3 and the blockchain and how it could be leveraged and so on and so forth, I think that that's been pretty consistent since. So, obviously, again, other factors playing into it over time, but I still somehow believe in it. It's even through some of the craziness and the shit you go through. You're like, no, that this does provide a better way if we can get to it. So
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. And it wouldn't be worth it if it was just all done and over with after a year of trying, right?
yeah. Oh
It's
my
going to
God, not
take
at all. Yeah.
a lot of work and it's going to take us convincing a lot of people, and that's partially why we're on this podcast right now. uh
Yeah.
I think that that's super important, and I appreciate your honesty. Right, like a lot of folks come here and claim that they are only in it for the perfect reasons and have been the whole time. And let's be real, majority of the folks in crypto and in blockchain came because of the profit or thought about that a little bit, and that's okay.
Yeah, and like, and that's the thing is, it's all about balance. Like, I it's how I got into this space. But then once I was in it for a few months and kind of some of the things that I started to build, I was like, wait, no, like this is an economy that you can build something much greater in, and that's that. I've always said that on Twitter. And I've meant it since I've been around. Is that, yeah, sure, it was a drawing factor, but when that becomes your only purpose in the space or in the thing that you're doing, that's the problem. Like, and you see that. I mean, that's the problem with capitalist societies in general. Well, different conversation.
Yeah.
But it's when you use that to weaponize X, Y, or Z thing. That's when it's bad. But people wanting to make a better life for themselves or to make money is not a bad thing at its core. It's how people do it. Well, then that's dishonest and that's bad. And if they say one thing, they do another, like that's a totally different story. But I think that we'd all be lying if we weren't like, yeah, no, the money in crypto had nothing to do with it. Nothing.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
okay, come on, guys. Let's be real.
Yeah, let's be real, and let's also think like that is a part of why our thesis, I think, is going to still work out, right? I think a lot of creators are going to come to these blockchain enabled social channels because they can
Yeah.
make more of a profit instead of, Twitch is a perfect example, or instead of Twitter or Facebook, you like fill in the blank of a centralized kind of Web2 tech company and how much money they're making and keeping from the creators. It's like, all right, so yes, the monetary draw is going to make a big difference, and it made a big difference in why we joined, and hopefully it will be for a lot of other creators. And yeah, that's what we're building towards.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's great. I think you're spot on in the reasoning why you're here, and the trajectory. And yeah, we all have to admit that it's not the most happy-go-lucky feeling of being in the blockchain ecosystem right now, especially compared to the last 2 years. But
Yeah,
what's
man.
been what's been keeping your chin up? What's been keeping you hopeful?
I think, um, hmm, I think that what's been keeping me hopeful is seeing what feels like a little bit of a maturation um, in the market and in buyers and people like that. I think that for me, especially like someone who is passionate about tech in general, like in emerging tech, I think seeing the progression is cool. And while things have been taken advantage of in the past, you can see some people get a little bit smarter from it. You can see some teams and projects and platforms kind of work around it. There are things that are discouraging too. Some of the creator fees and things that are going entirely away. But the reality is one day they'll solve that tracks and we'll be all good again. I think people get really scared on that kind of stuff, and it's like, guys, like just take a breather. Yeah, it's not great, but I'm sure there are ways around it. We have
Hmm.
plenty of brilliant people in the world. um, but I think seeing some of the maturation and like and seeing some of the real life use cases. I think that you and I both live in California. I don't know. Am I supposed to say that? I don't know if I'm supposed
Yeah,
to
that's fine.
dox you like
That's
that.
fine.
Whatever. We just saw. Sorry, reverse. Seeing some of the actual use cases. In California where some people live. I don't know who that would be, but where some people live in California, they're going to be using, or they're looking to use the Tezos, I think, blockchain for DMV records. And for me, that's like, okay, well, what a great example and use case where people see, okay, this isn't just pictures of monkeys and doodle farts and whatever, but it
Hmm.
actually has some level of value
Yeah.
and makes your life better. So that kind of keeps my chin up of, okay, cool. We are working towards this goal that we had 3 years ago that everyone's like, yeah, ETH to 10K, and it's actually going to be helpful. Yeah, whatever.
Right. Right. Yeah,
So,
that's really great. Yeah, it's important to look at those wins, even though they're kind of shuffled under the rug, because that's not as much of a clickable headline as
yeah,
uh, bored apes are now worth half what they were 6 weeks ago, and it's like, yeah, that's signal and noise consumption, right?
yeah,
So much noise
exactly.
about how things are very different from last year, Whereas there's a lot of signals of how, big brands, what Coinbase's announcement of creating their own blockchain is a
Yeah.
huge, huge announcement. I think a lot more corporations are going to have their own chain. And that's just kind of like a trend that we're seeing one of the early incumbents and like first movers do. And we're going to see a lot
Yeah.
more of that. And then, yeah, you see like an Amazon partnership with Avalanche, and you can go
Yeah.
like down like a whole list of big brands that are still leaning into this, and how much more that important that is compared to Bored Apes prices.
Spot
It's
on, man. I think,
yeah.
and two, like being a person that has worked with and for large tech companies and large brands, they don't do those moves as like a whim, like, oh, well, we'll try this out. Like, I think a lot of people think that, oh, it's just a pilot, but the reality is those businesses are very calculated. If they don't feel like it's an actual good idea for their bottom line and for what they're building, they're not going to do it. And so I hope people put that in perspective of, to your point, Amazon announcing that's not just them like, oh, let's just put our foot in the water, whatever. It's like they actually see something of value there and they're going to
Hmm.
put resources towards it. So it's cool.
Yeah. I was talking about this yesterday, where I like the mixed feelings we have around Spotify testing the waters with, song NFTs and podcast NFTs. And I totally agree with you. They're paying attention because it's going to be important for their bottom line, and they need to be ahead of that trend since
Yeah.
they've been behind a lot of others. And that they've heard about artists like Taylor Swift complaining about Spotify's horrible business structure for even artists at that level. But yeah, how do you feel about you know the dichotomy between these new platforms that are giving creators like all the ownership versus like Web2 companies kind of like latching on and saying like, oh, we're gonna do this but partially? And yeah, where do you
Yeah.
sit in that?
Yeah. I mean, I think the reality is that for larger companies like a Spotify or an Apple Music or whatever to change will, like, especially in things like um, their comp structures and things of that nature. Change will have to be necessary. And as much as we all want everyone to be the Robinhood of life, at the end of the day, like, people are going to try to profit. And so it's easy to kind of look at, and yeah, I could easily say negative things about Twitch and Spotify, and I don't agree with the way that they pay their creators. I think it's awful. I think that the, their creators are why they exist. So it's like one of those weird ecosystems. And I just posted something about LinkedIn, something on LinkedIn about it actually yesterday.
Hmm.
Um, I think again, on like what keeps mentioning up and what's encouraging is that they're seeing a shift. And so like with what Spotify's doing, they're testing the waters now because they know they're going to need to change soon. And if they can figure it out in a low to no cost way, or a way that doesn't leave a lot of responsibility on them right now, like for them to create their own system in it, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with smart contracts and keeping people safe and wallets and all that kind of stuff. They're like, we don't want that yet, because they know they're probably going to have to do it later, but they're testing out how do we use these systems and structures to actually benefit people, our business, all that kind of stuff, where eventually things will have to change. They'll have to change the royalty distributions and the way that they pay people out and the way that they measure, success for an artist and things like that. So, it's easy. Like if I could talk shit about a bunch of different companies and how they structure stuff. Um, and some people come to the defense like, well, it costs money to run these companies. Well, yeah, it does for sure, but you just got to make sure that, like, that it all lines up. It all makes sense. So I think that them leveraging these things is actually going to be a net positive thing in the long run, even though it may feel negative in some ways now.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an important way to put it, finding that balance for
Yeah.
creators and for the company. Cause yeah, we know that the company has to exist, but as soon as they start to get greedy and just look at the bottom line and, you know, doing the best for their stockholders instead of their creators, it's a very different story. And
Well, I
I find
think,
myself, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, sorry, no, keep going. My bad. My bad.
Yeah, I find myself trying to sort out, if our thesis is correct, if the ownership economy and creator economy is the future, and we both definitely think it will be,
Yeah.
then how do these companies play a role, right? And whether is it going to be that these new platforms, like Farcaster or Lens or, all the other video streaming ones as well. Are they going to be the new players and move this forward and evolve the space? Or are the old players going to find out how to use the technology and embrace these new values in this new economy? And
No,
yeah, no one knows the
that's
answer.
spot on.
That's one of the interesting points of where we're at in this ecosystem and the evolution
Yeah,
of it.
that's spot on. And I think the right answer is it'll be a mix. I think that
Hmm.
there will be some that catch up and they catch the wave, and there will be some that die on the hill that they're on, and that's their demise. And we will see
Mm-hmm.
large companies that used to make millions and billions of dollars go down because another competitor. It happens all the time, you know. Um, I think the one thing with like, because I read things on Twitter and stuff about Spotify, people bitching about it or whatever. The reality is that I think the NFT space has also given people this idea, like these really bizarre ideas on time and money, meaning like, time. They think everything needs to happen now, and everything's expedited. When in all reality, like life can't move like that. Like Spotify's first iteration of their product into Web3 will not be perfect, and the fact that people expect that in the NFT space is interesting. Um, because they also don't then see the bigger picture of the NFT space is the only ones complaining about the problems of Spotify, not realizing that Spotify may actually be attracting people to that space as well. So it's like this really
Mm-hmm.
weird dichotomy that we have, um,
Yeah, well said.
where it's like you gotta weigh the good and the bad and understand where it is in each stage, and realize that Spotify isn't, Pudgy Penguins or whatever project that can move quickly. Spotify's a big ass company with a lot of different shareholders and a lot of different people that are making decisions, and it's going to move slow. But the NFT space makes you think, oh no, everything should happen tomorrow. And the NFT space also makes you think that $5 million isn't a lot of money. Where
Hmm.
friends with you, not to, I don't know if you're gonna talk shit or not, but they raised $5.6 million, and they're like, well, we can't build these products because of the market. Dude, you raised $5.5 million on your mint. Like, you could build some with the roadmap that you put out. Those products should have been built, and they should have been built fast because you had enough money to do that. But you chose to sit on that cash or do whatever it is to squander that. And
Mm-hmm.
but the NFT space is like, oh man, they tried. Dude, you give me $5 million, I like we can turn a pretty decent business with that in a year. Like maybe that's just me, and maybe I'm overconfident in that. But I think that it's an interesting factor that NFT space has hyperdrive time, but a lower value on money. And it's like when the reality should be flopped. They should be more lenient on time, but more stringent on, okay, no, you raised $5 million or 10 or whatever. Like you should provide something that's of value to me. It's weird.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And speaking of Pudgy Penguins, the head of it, the CEO, Luca Netz, was just on a podcast talking about how he's raising and he probably only needs about $5 million. And he's like, you would not believe how much I can do with $5 million. And you see how much they've
Exactly.
already been able to do with whatever they've raised in the first place. And it's like, oh wow, okay, yeah. They, have
Yeah.
billions of views on their GIFs on Giphy. And you don't need $5 million to make GIFs take off and like memeable content, right?
No,
Uh,
dude, that's why I brought them up, because honestly, I think that they're slept on hardcore. Like you search a lot of terms, pudgy penguin gifs on Giphy or whatever the hell it's called, however you pronounce that word. Uh, they're usually the top 10. And that sounds silly. It's like one small example of like, but their ecosystem in general, they've done a really great job at using their funds properly and not doing these huge, massive mints with, I don't want to go down the laundry list of projects that I just feel like have hosed everybody. But it's like, bro, you got to figure out how you turn that cash into something of value. And it's different. Like when people come out and say, I'm an artist, I'm doing these one of one color, I have zero expectation that they're going to turn around and make it a business. But when an artist says, I'm going to do a 10,000 PFP collection and it's going to do X, Y, or Z, well, yeah, I expect that to happen. And when it doesn't, it's disappointing. Like, so it's just an interesting shift in the market, but we'll figure it out over time, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, to go back to your previous point about how quickly the NFT space like expects movement, I think that
Yeah,
it's classic newcomers pushing the old incumbents to make faster actions, and if they don't keep up, then the newcomers are going to surpass them, and so it's good competition. I think it's going to do a great thing for the Spotifys of the world that
yeah,
have felt like they could just kind of sit on their hands and rake in cash. And it's like, no, 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 no. The creators aren't just going to accept this. They're going to fight back and create new platforms and new ways to monetize their creations. And so I
yeah.
think, yeah, that's super. Yeah, that's going to be something that I'm going to be paying attention to. And I really hope that, I mean, if the past tells us anything, the big incumbents will probably stick around for a while, but whoever's moving quicker and can really gain the trust of the creators is going to surpass them and take on the next 5 to 10 years. And it kind of feels like we're at that boiling point where we're in between, this social media craze and something new. And yeah, I'm not sure when it's going to take off, but it feels like it's going to be soon.
Dude, you're spot on with it, and I think that um, if we look at even look at TikTok. TikTok came if we're really honest, TikTok came out of nowhere and they just did it better than Instagram and all that kind of stuff. And the reality is that they were a small competitor with larger competitors kind of like in their face, and they were able to turn it around because they were able to gain the right market share. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what's going to decide if these companies stay around or not, because there becomes a tipping point where if you're Spotify and you lose enough of your market share, people are less likely to come back to your platform, even if you do all the reconciliation later on and you've lost 70% of your market share. Well, regaining that will be very, very difficult. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really just a question of how nimble our company is going to be. That's why Instagram has taken a huge hit, because they were not nimble enough to figure out how TikTok did it and do it better, or do it this even just the same. And because of it, I mean, TikTok is now a competitor with Google on search terms. Like, it's bizarre. And
Mm-hmm.
4 years ago, no one really even knew of TikTok. So it's like
Yeah.
it's there's a lot that goes into it, and it's a lot of it's about agility and how nimble we can be and push forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Speaking of agility, turning the tables a little bit,
Yeah.
can you tell me about the blockchain project, the NFT project, the project that you're working on right now?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this so it's a project called Bag Cards. We've been working on it for, I mean, 2 years now, a year and a half, 2 years, and it's something that uh, this is actually, I think I learned the most about building businesses and my view on the blockchain through it. Where it's a project that I've had in my head for a long time, and I felt like the NFT space and the blockchain empowered the idea. Um, But then there became a point and a tipping point for me where the pressure of the NFT space just became so enormous. Because the reality is building sustainable businesses doesn't happen overnight, and that's what the expectation that everyone kind of had in the space was. And I mean, the holders and our community are amazing. They're still hanging on. They're still incredible. But we've kind of over the last 6 months, we've said, you know what, we're really going to build our foundation. We're not going to worry about. I have messages in the Discord, which is now close, because I wanted to keep it tight knit. I'm like, we are building businesses, and this is what we're committed to. We're not. I'm not going to keep getting out on Twitter and trying to pump fake excitement about something that might not have it quite yet. Um, and that refocus, man, has been so good, because one, um, I love the community and the people that we have. I mean, our community managers, they just stick around because they love the idea and the project, and they love what we're doing. And we're now positioned, I think, this year, we're projecting to have, I think, to quadruple our audience on the platform. And our strategy, and everyone in the Discord is, we've done this in lockstep with them, is they're down for the cause of, hey, we're going to focus on getting more users, acquiring more people, getting more people interested in this game that we've built, and then from there, helping them onboard into the space, because that was the original intent of the project anyway. From day one, I said, this is an experiment to figure out how do we onboard more people into the NFT space. And what it is, I didn't really explain it, but it's what it is and will be is an online hub for party games. So instead of having to lug around all your boxes of what do you meme and all those games like that, you'll have one central location, and in the next month and a half, you'll be able to play it on your desktop, play it on an Apple TV app, play it on an Amazon TV app. You can play it across the world or locally with your friends, and it will have a tokenized system involved and all these amazing features. But right now, we're seeing hundreds of thousands of users per month, and we plan to grow that exponentially this year. Some great partners lined up that I can't quite share yet. Where I'm like waiting for them to sign this paper, but they've committed verbally. But we're building the hell out of it, and we're looking at it as a sustainable business, not this hyped up, cool, buy my art. Oh shit, sorry guys, we can't do this anymore. Like that's not me. I want to build something sustainable. So it's been a lot of fun, and it's taught me a lot. And I know it will be successful, just because I know what our team is now capable of. We just actually expanded our team. We brought on 3 more devs. I know what our team's capable of, and we're going to kick ass. It's not going to be this hyperdrive growth. It's going to be something sustainable that people are like, holy shit, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm rooting for you. I've played one iteration of a game that's in the ecosystem and had a ton of fun and a blast with it. And yeah, I know the blockchain structure that existed then, but can you talk more to how the blockchain's incorporated in that ecosystem?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what our roadmap is we have our limited pass, which is our club pass. It's 777 items, and that will give you lifetime membership to our platform. And what that means is we kind of we leverage different creator economies and communities and work with them on releasing different card packs and other fun, witty content, things of that nature. And what this pass does is it gives you unlimited access to that. Is instead of we have a monthly subscription model as well. That's Web2 or whatever. And it's people. I mean, we have many thousands of subscribers every month. But it's lifetime access to that. So instead of paying long term fees and all that kind of stuff, you have lifetime access to it, exclusive access to new packs that come out, pre-sale access to those types of things. And then as our goals for the end of this year and early next year is also to have a tokenized system with it, which we're kind of developing as time goes on as well, where those passes will grant you those types of items as well. And it's a way, what I love about it is it's a good marriage of the Web2 and the Web3 space, where I think Reddit did this really well, where people were able to buy their avatars and they used USD and it wasn't a big deal. And it was like, people kind of didn't think anything of it, but in turn it was backed by blockchain technology. And that is our goal, for what we've been building, is how do we marry those two things? Because in my opinion, the only way you get mass adoption is by doing that versus trying to force feed someone, no, make a wallet now. And, put all your money in it, and oh shoot, you got scammed. It's just it's just this perpetual issue that we've seen in the space. So
Yeah.
I think it will be a substantial business and a substantial player in the market. I think that we're going to take down some of our largest competitors. Our content creator structure is incredibly generous to the creators, because that's what's going to make our ecosystem happen. And that's just how I want to build it. I want to build it as a way to benefit others and to have fun in the mix, So
Yeah. I fully agree that Reddit's a prime example of how to use the blockchain and keep it involved, but not at the forefront, and how people can really enjoy what it unlocks without realizing what's happening. And I think that that's going to be the case all over technology. And, we're going to see it in 5 years, 10 years, you name the amount of time. We can't predict when, but there's going to be a time where a lot of folks are like have no idea that they have an NFT, and that's exactly what they own in a wallet that they didn't even know was a wallet. And we're going to look back on the days and say, wow, what a weird time. We tried to convince everybody to join this ecosystem by just saying, get the NFT, the like get in on the blockchain. It's like, no, that's not getting people excited. Not the 100 million people. That's they're gonna want something else and just have it powered by the
Yeah.
blockchain. And so, yeah, that ties into my next question, which is, what do you think needs to happen other than that to get the 100 million users into blockchain?
Um, this is a layered question. Um, I think that blockchain purists need to get a life. Um, Meaning, what I mean by that is that there are, and this is probably the only group that I've gotten any kickback from, is people who are like, no, if it's going to be blockchain, it's blockchain only. And I think the blockchain's intimidating. I can't tell you how many hours of research I did before putting any money into my MetaMask. Like, I think it was probably 2 full months of like after work, figuring it out, learning about it. Like, I was scared. Money is money is no joke, especially in this current. People don't call it a recession, but I mean, we're kind of in a recession. Like, whatever you
Mm-hmm.
want to coin it as, downturn. I don't know,
Yeah.
whatever the hell it's called. Um, and I think that the idea that we're just force people into a new banking system is wild. The way I look at it is I actually did a lot of research on credit cards and on ATM cards, um, because that was a huge adoption for everyone. Went from paying cash to now having this plastic card that had all of their money on it. And that seems bizarre to people because it is. It's kind of, especially in that time frame, you're like, wait, what is this? And what it was is that it was I mean, it's only been up until recently where businesses stopped asking the question, cash or credit, where I mean, a majority of all of my life, it's always been you could pay with either. And before then I mean, I had like a whole thread on it. I have to find it. But if you look at the progression of credit card companies and how credit cards were implemented, I actually see the blockchain as probably a similar path for success. Because if we were to force everyone tomorrow to only use the blockchain technology to do their payments and this and that, people would just be like, all right, well, cool, I'm done. Like I can't do this. But if you look at the approach that credit cards and debit cards had over time, and for how long in our society it has been cash or credit, I mean, and I think that it will still be cash or credit for a long time. There are places in rural America that people still are going to pay cash for things, probably for the next 20 to 30 years, maybe even more. Um, where I think that we need to have the same grace and approach when it comes to the blockchain. The only way that we're going to see the next 100 million users is if we allow a variety of options, that we give people the opportunity to pay with the blockchain and show them why it's better versus forcing it down their throat. Um, I think that that's probably one of our biggest hurdles is how do we give people options there, and also how do we paint the picture that it's better, because to many people it's just another version of a credit card that's less secure. But you and I know that's not true. There's a lot of different opportunities and abilities through the blockchain, but painting that picture, it takes time.
Yeah, for sure. That's really well said. It's going to take potentially decades, potentially months. We'll see where it lands in between. But I agree with you. Finding a happy medium on the Web 2.5 approach, right? Where there are Web 2 folks that are going to put their feet in the sand, and then there's Web 3 folks that are going to be on the other side battling, and it has to be a balance, just like we were talking about earlier. There's got to be a way to
Yeah.
find a middle point that is going to allow those that are curious to jump in and not have to dive in fully with like total fear in the back of their mind, like, oh my god, I'm going
Yep.
to lose all of my money. And then there's got to be a lot of Web 3 folks that meet some Web 2 folks in the middle and say, hey, we're building here, and you can come if you want to use your credit card. That's okay. If you want to use Web 3, that's okay. Here, we're going to show you how you can get like a POAP or an NFT, and here's your starter course, and then we'll build from there. I think that's great. I think I fully agree. And yeah, just like rural America. I had a conversation with someone who was talking about electric cars and how,
Yeah.
yeah, we might have a future where it's 90%, but there's still going to be that 10% that want their old Fords, gas guzzling and holding their shotgun out the window in their own highway lane potentially, or
Yep.
just trying to run electric cars off the road. And we can't resist that. That's honestly the American way, and it's a natural human reaction to change. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think, I think it's just hard. It's hard to fathom being so, so strict one way or the other, like are trying to like, the same way that people in the crypto space don't want regulation and control and the government to control their money and this and that. Like the reality is if you really were to examine it at a high level, like you trying to push one way or another, you're trying to control the outcome, you're trying to control the situation. And as people, like we all desire a level of freedom, and freedom is kind of subjective. I think sometimes I think that there are freedoms that probably we shouldn't have. That's just me personally. Like, I don't think that everyone needs an AK-47, but we won't talk about that. Not the type of conversation we're having today, but you know
I
what I
brought up
mean.
the
Like,
shotguns. It's my fault.
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, exactly. Like I don't know if everyone needs that. Doesn't feel necessary, but it is what it is. But to your point, like people want a level of freedom and a level of the people like options to a degree. I think too many options is scary, but people like options. And when you take the idea that your options are gone away, like when you take the idea of I can choose away, then that just no one has a good taste in their mouth from that. No one
Mm,
likes that. And I think we need to be a little bit more gracious in this process of how do we, you know, I think that's even an approach for brands. How do you make it so where it's not like hey, we have a Web3 option and a non-Web3 option? It's like, no, how do you just can we somehow marry the two for a little while and to your point, showcase what's cool about it or how you can level it up. Like that's why I love companies like I don't know if you've heard of IYK, but IYK is sick. They do a lot of like essentially they use NFC tags um, to link your garment to a digital collectible, and that could
mm,
be anything. So like, hey, I bought this Champion hoodie and it has a NFC tag in it. Oh, I can scan it and I can wear the exact same hoodie in Sandbox or whatever. And I think that those are the types of things where you can, hey, I want my physical piece, but I do want it in a digital world. And that's maybe a weird kind of roundabout example, but I think that they're actually doing that, you know, play your own way kind of thing really well. I'm surprised they're not bigger, to be honest. The team's awesome too. They're super dope. But yeah, people want options, man. Don't
yeah.
don't, don't force me on it.
Yeah. Yeah. A blend. It's like the phygital world, right? I think
Yeah,
that to go back to the Pudgy Penguins, they're going to start selling plushies in store, and then you can, I assume, scan a QR code and get the digital experience that comes along with that phygital and physical item.
yeah,
And yeah, so that's what people want, right? If they're spending half their lives, increasingly more parts of their lives in the digital world, we can call that the metaverse. I don't know how anyone defines it anymore, but if you're spending
yeah,
time there, you're going to want your plushie on your couch over there, and then you're going to want to be able to look at your screen and experience the plushie in another way. And that might
yeah,
be through a mixed reality activation, or it's the plushie that you can bring into your virtual room that you're living in, or all the ideas that they're working on that I'm not working on that are going to be much
yeah,
better. And that's definitely the future. If there's one trend we know of, it's that more people are spending time online and they want to feel ownership. And if you can provide more emotional and rational responses to that trend, then you're going to succeed. And yeah, I feel like
exactly.
that's a good hopeful note to end on.
Yeah,
uh, but yeah, Nate, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for sharing all of your insights. I'll leave some show notes about the LinkedIn post that you were talking about, and of course bad cards. And
yeah,
yeah, where can people find you? Where should they reach out?
yeah. I mean, I've actually been bigger on LinkedIn these days. Twitter is fine too. I like to connect with where people are, and I'm kind of not picky, so um, I'm not trying to grow myself as an influencer. So follow me on Twitter. It's like I just want real people. If we're gonna live in a digital world, I want people to be real in the process. And so wherever you're at, love to connect. If you're building cool stuff, build it together. But Nick, thank you so much for building cool stuff. I mean, you're so easy to talk to. You're so easy to get along with. I think that you doing this is just a natural progression of you as a human. And I really appreciate you having me on and kind of just talking about random stuff, but stuff that matters, and it's cool. So
Hell yeah.
thank you for your time, and yeah, man, can't wait to see when you have like 20 million subscribers, and
Okay.
I'm just like I'm like a loser you talked to once. You're like, oh man, that dumbass episode with Nate. Oh man, awful.
We'll sell it.
But
We'll sell the episode as an NFT. So see how it does. We can say it was
perfect.
one of the first four. Hopefully that will play
Yeah.
well.
Okay, cool. Yeah. All right. All right. The OG. Yeah, we'll be the crypto punks of Build On. That's great. I like
Yes.
it.
Wow.
All right.
Okay. That's the perfect note to end on. Thanks, Nate.
Awesome. I'll see you, man.